Welcome to Get to the Hook. I am your co-host, Charles Latibeaudiere.
And I'm your co-host, Eric Colley.
If I actually had the knowledge to do this, I would have done that intro in Latin. Because this week's hook comes to us from the Vatican. No, I was waiting for the host of angels. No, not for us.
Are we talking about Joan Osborne, one of us?
Well,
about the Pope in Rome?
Not today, but because of Pope Leo XIV being, as we all know now, a proud Chicagoan, we are going to the Windy City for a musical maps.
Right, we got the first
edition.
American Pope, who happens to come from one of the most significant musical cities in this country.
God, there's so much to love about Chicago, beyond music. But today we're gonna talk about music. But I love that city.
It's embarrassing how many great artists are from Chicago. Like, what an embarrassment of riches for this city to have
really
the deep bench they do in blues and jazz and rock and soul and hip hop and dance. There's just everything.
That's the thing that's impressive about it, is that there's so many different genres. Like, when we did Seattle, you know what you're going to get, what you expected there. It's a heavy rock sound there, right. But Chicago's got everything.
Everything. And it's got even its own subgenres. There's like the Chicago style jazz, Chicago blues, Chicago house.
Yeah.
All these things. Like, it has Chicago drill and rap now.
Yeah.
It's got its own genres it's created or changed. So we're going to go to the beginning, basically, where almost every good music city starts, the blues.
Oh, yeah.
And this starts early 20th century. The Great Migration is when a lot of black workers from the South started moving up towards the north to the bigger cities. They brought their music with them.
Thank God.
So the blues from Mississippi came up to Chicago. And the reason Chicago blues is its own thing and it's so significant is because they added electric instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And basically unintentionally created rock and roll while they were at it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the godfather of all that in Chicago, of Chicago blues, is Muddy Waters. This is his song, Manish Boy.
That's spelled Manish Boy. But a man, I'm a full-grown man.
You know what is kind of putting a spotlight on that Chicago blues sound again, even though the film Sinners is set in Louisiana.
But the two main characters come from Chicago.
And there's a lot of conversation about the music going to Chicago and that they wanted to have this club down there. And you hear a lot of that sound in some.
Right.
Honestly, for a movie that's not, I don't want to go off on a complete tangent here.
Well, it's not really. One of the people we're going to talk about is in the movie.
Yes, that's right. But it is, for not being a musical, man, they use music so well. And I'm not going to give away the plot sign.
There's one scene where they kind of, I don't want to say time travel. That's overstating it. It's not exactly that. But they have this moment where multiple generations of music overlap. And if you're a music fan, it's spectacular.
Magical, yeah.
So Chicago blues, you have Muddy Waters. By the way, that song, Manish Boy, fun fact, there's a line in the song he talks about being a Rolling Stone, which is where the Rolling Stones got their name from.
Yeah, so,
just a tossed off line.
Small, I think that's a nice feather in his cap there.
Right. I indirectly named the Rolling Stones. Also, Sonny Boy Williamson is from Chicago. Howlin' Wolf, Willie Dixon, Little Walter, the harmonica player, and Buddy Guy.
Yes,
who is in Sinners.
Yeah, is in Sinners. We won't reveal how it comes out.
It's after the credits.
Yes.
Don't leave when the credits start.
Exactly, because there's like a whole epilogue there that you really do need to see.
But I not to spoil anything, but I will say he doesn't just play like a blues musician in the background. He's acting, and he's good.
Yeah.
Just turned 88.
Amazing. Turned 88 last summer, and I had this stupid misfortune of I was in town for a convention. I was literally staying around the corner from his bar, and I didn't know that. So the night I checked into the hotel, I was like, what's in the neighborhood? And I saw Buddy Guy's Legends was 1 block away. I said, I'll walk over there. Maybe I'll get to see some local talent.
Because it's not going to be bad. Whether they're famous or not or anything, if you're playing at Buddy Guy's bar, you're talented.
Right. And so that's what I was hoping to see. And I walked over, and they said, we have a special event tonight. And I said, what's going on? They're like, it's Buddy's 88th birthday. And even then I thought, it's still going to be local musicians just celebrating his music. And they said, yeah, Buddy's here. And I said, he's here? Is he going to get on stage? Like, yeah, he might be up there at some point. And I walked in and I paid, I think it was only like $25 or something. And there's Buddy Guy on stage. And he was performing. He wasn't playing guitar that night, but he had his family members all up there. There was birthday cake. They sang for him. And he was singing as only Buddy Guy can.
Bit by bit, your love is fading away from me. Tried to train you last night. I was in my car. I was afraid I might see just what I was looking for. I said, little by little.
Well, bit by bit, your love is fading away from me.
Y'all can have it. I'm gonna go get fucked up.
It was
Yeah, if
really,
he'd played guitar, it would have cost more.
yeah, exactly. That would have made me.
I don't do that for free.
But it was cool. I got to meet him, got a photo with him, hung out with Buddy and his kids, did a few shots, probably more than I should have that night, but we had a good time.
That is
we had a
so
very
cool.
good time.
Please tell me you at least outdrank an 88-year-old Buddy Guy.
I didn't. I would love to be able to say to you that I actually did shots with Buddy.
Yeah.
I didn't. He was busy taking photos with everyone who was there. I was with his kids.
And how cool now with Sinners to get this
Yeah.
later in life. Just not that he needs the victory lap, but how
No,
cool.
doesn't need it, but I'm glad he's getting it. And it is, that movie is such a celebration of the music of Muddy Waters, of Buddy Guy, of all that whole Chicago blues sound.
Yeah.
Is really celebrated and well deserved.
Yeah. And so if Chicago only had that, it
By
would
the
still
way,
be a legendary city.
I would say, because I didn't realize this until I was just looking it up before we were doing this, that Muddy Waters was Buddy Guy's sort of entree into music, that he was playing on a session.
Yeah.
And
One thing we always say when we do these musical maps is one of the recipes or one of the ingredients you kind of see with a lot of these cities is a local record label. Somebody who had the foresight to say, hey, we've got all this local talent, let's put them all together. And that was Chess Records in Chicago, which also had its subsidiaries VJ and Checker. But a lot of these blues musicians were session musicians for Chess Records.
Yeah.
And that's how they all just met each other, collaborated, and just invented a whole style of music.
Yeah, just amazing. So Buddy Guy played on a session with Muddy Waters, and someone heard him and they're like, oh, we should give this guy a contract.
Little Walter's playing harmonica with him. And
it reminds me of that scene in, what's the title of the movie? Cadillac Records, where the Rolling Stones come to town and there's a guy who's just like doing maintenance around the studio, and it's freaking Muddy Waters. Amazing.
And also, not too long after that, around that time, I mean, that was more the 50s, a little bit before, the swing sound, when it was big in America, the, proclaimed king of swing is from Chicago, Benny Goodman. And his drummer, Gene Krupa, was from Chicago.
Of course.
Gene Krupa, who invented modern drumming. If you listen to old records from the 20s and 30s, if there are any drums at all, they're just kind of a little tap in the back.
Yeah.
Gene Krupa on the song Sing, Sing, Sing with a Swing comes in with a drum solo, just that. Nobody was doing that. That was 90 years ago, and that song still sounds so fresh. And so modern drumming came out of Chicago.
There you go.
And also jazz. Quincy Jones was born in Chicago. Didn't live there too long.
Right.
Also, Herbie
But they
Hancock.
get to claim him. They get to claim him. Yeah.
Herbie Hancock is from Chicago. I mean, how do you get Muddy Waters and Benny Goodman and Herbie Hancock and Quincy Jones? Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so you have all this jazz sound and all these horns, and of course that is going to seep into the other music in the town. We're going to see that with the R&B. The rock of Chicago, one of the first big Chicago bands to have a #1 hit was a group called the Buckinghams. It had the song Kind of a Drag in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Had a big horn section in that song, really catchy. The Buckinghams were kind of big, but not quite as big as another group that would marry horns and rock and roll later in the 60s and early 70s.
And that, I'm sure when they're trying to come up with a name for the band, they're like, what could we?
Let's see, we're a band from Chicago. Well, they originally were called Chicago Transit Authority.
Oh, really?
That was the original name of the band, was Chicago Transit Authority. And they're like, this is too unwieldy. Let's just shorten it to Chicago.
Yeah.
And that early Chicago had that jazzy horn section. This is one of their early hits. This is 25 or 6 to 4.
Feeling like I ought to sleep. Spinning room is sinking deep.
That's from Chicago. Yeah.
We always make fun of our coworker Derek, who loves Chicago. hates that version of Chicago.
Right.
He hates
likes,
that jazzy rock swing 70s version.
He
likes
wants the
80s.
softer, Cetera out front.
And I don't hate that stuff. I mean, hard to
It's
say I'm
different.
sorry.
It's a completely.
Come
It's almost like they're two different bands.
Yeah.
And I know people say this about Van Halen also, and I think they were two different bands with.
Van
David
Halen just
Roth.
changed singers, and Sammy Hagar's songwriting was different, but it was still Eddie Van Halen
Right.
driving it. Chicago's sound changed so completely. They had the horn section through the whole career, but with those early hits like Saturday in the Park and Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is?
Oh,
Good
just
stuff.
a great jazz rock fusion that there are very few bands as successful as them at doing that, and
we're good.
kudos.
Like, Chicago is really good. And again, had they been the only big rock band to come out of Chicago, I mean, they're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Also, you have, in the 70s, you've got Styx is from Chicago.
That's all right. I
Most famous for
forgot
Mr.
that. That's
Roboto.
right.
No, I'm
Yes.
kidding.
No.
Come Sail Away, Babe, Lorelei,
Right, those are
Lady.
Chicago
So
also,
many
yeah.
great songs. So you got Styx and Chicago. Cheap Trick is from Chicago.
No, Cheap Trick.
Cheap Trick is like one of the Chicago bands.
Why did I think they were an LA
'cause-
band?
They got big in Japan from Latibeaudiere. but
Yeah.
Yeah, Cheap Trick is from Chicago. Singer-songwriter John Prine, folk singer-songwriter from
Mhm, yeah.
Chicago. Richard Marx grew up there.
Mhm.
So he moved to LA when he was in his late teens. One of the biggest 90s bands, we're talking about Seattle, in the middle of the Seattle grunge invasion, one of the premier 90s rock bands was from Chicago, the Smashing Pumpkins.
That's right.
They were huge. And also, fun fact, even while Seattle was dominating, the lead singer of one of the biggest bands from Seattle was born in a Chicago suburb. Eddie Vedder of
Vedder.
Pearl Jam
Yeah.
was a Chicago guy. Industrial Group Ministries from there, punk band Rise Against, Disturbed, the Plain White Tees. Remember that song, Hey There, Delilah?
Oh yeah.
Liz Phair, OK Go. They're the band that every one of their music videos is an event. Remember they had the song Here It Goes Again, and it was them
Yes.
performing on treadmills. And in the early days of YouTube, it was one of the first viral music videos because people were like, these guys are singing on treadmills. And they did the really elaborate choreography all
Right.
in one take. I follow them on YouTube because every time they put out a new video, it just blows your mind. They still are doing
Wow.
insane things in their music videos. So go check those out if you haven't seen one in a while. Wilco is from Chicago, the Alkaline Trio, and the biggest band probably since Smashing Pumpkins, Fall Out Boy.
Also Chicago. That's right.
Chicago boys. Pete Wentz and Patrick Stump, they're from Chicago.
At a point, it definitely becomes like we said.
It's
this
too
with
much.
Seattle. But it feeds on itself, right? I mean, you become an industry town.
And you see
And-
so many of these bands work with each other.
Right.
Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick has worked with Smashing Pumpkins. 80s glam metal band Enough's Enough. They're a Chicago band. All these guys work together the same way the blues guys did.
Yeah.
It's a small scene, even for such a big city, and they work together, influence each other, and I think help lift each other up.
Clearly, and
Clearly.
and did a great job of it, just keeping the trains moving.
Yeah.
The Chicago Transit Authority trains.
Well, they were the Chicago Transit Authority. Let's talk about R&B because it's just as ridiculous as the rock. Maybe even more so.
Maybe more.
This is a deep bench. If you don't know, all these people either were born in Chicago or moved there and grew up there. These were their formative musical beginnings. We're going to start with a group that, like Chicago, took that horn sound from jazz, folded it into funk and R&B. I think maybe the best horn section in any pop.
I always
rock R&B
I always
group.
think of these, and I know they toured at least a couple of times together, but I do think of Chicago and Earth, Wind, and Fire as sort of the yin and yang,
Yeah.
I guess, of
Like
sort
the
of
rock and the
taking
soul
horns.
and-
Yes, exactly.
And so let's just play one of the most iconic songs. Talk about like seasonal hits, like Mariah Carey every Christmas, Michael Jackson every Halloween. This is a seasonal song that gets a boost in streaming every year, not because it's tied to a holiday. The day has become a holiday because of this song. Because otherwise, what is the 21st of September? It is nothing. But now it is a special day because of this song, September by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I'm going to take umbrage with you, Eric.
What?
It is not a seasonal song. That song is, I get the title, and I know what you're saying, I know the holiday. That song, any time, it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, yeah. I'm just saying, it's just
When you
crazy. Every year, that song gets a streaming
Does it
boost.
actually go?
Yes,
way
every year.
up?
And Earth, Wind, and Fire's greatest hits will rechart because at the first week of October, usually, because that song gets
Because
so
people
much
are
play
playing
on
it so
September
much?
21st.
I just feel like I heard it, because you hear it a lot, and I heard it recently just somewhere, where was like at a restaurant or something. And I just looked around, and everybody hears that song, and you instantly smile.
It's the sound of joy. It is pure
Yes,
joy
yes,
on
it
record.
is the sound
The
of
verses are
joy.
joyful. The chorus, when that that hit's just as explosive.
And the
horns
are just, yeah, it's amazing.
So again, if Chicago only had Earth, Wind, and Fire, that's legendary.
That's it. You
R&B.
pack them up, you can go home, you're like, hey, we've done enough here.
I struggled which act to pick a soundbite from. I picked September because everybody knows that song. But listen to the other artists, just in R&B and soul, who are from Chicago. Sam Cooke, Curtis Mayfield, Nat King Cole, Donny Hathaway, the Shy-Lights, the Staple Singers, Rufus and Shaka Khan, the Emotions, Lou Rawls, Jerry Butler, Minnie Riperton, who is Maya Rudolph's mother.
Right.
More recent years, well, the king of 90s R&B.
Yeah.
We have to mention it. R. Kelly was a massive, massive presence in music. Jeremiah, the R&B singer, and EGOT winner Jennifer Hudson. All Chicago. I mean,
not bad.
Sam Cooke, Curtis Mayfield, Earth, Wind, and Fire,
And
Donny Hathaway. That's insane.
I hate to say this just because it's going to sound like I'm only doing it because we mentioned his girlfriend, but we have to say Common also.
Oh, we're getting to Common. We haven't even gotten to hip hop yet, Charles.
Oh, we're going to get to hip-hop.
We got to do them by
later.
genre because it's too many just to even. Quick detour into dance music. We mentioned early on Chicago House.
I didn't know what I had to be. Someone schooled me on that many years ago, obviously. But I knew growing up in New York, like I knew house, and then someone said, "No, the Chicago House," and I was like, "Chicago doesn't have any house that's like."
You New York snobs, that and the pizza.
I was definitely a New York snob, and I was put in my place.
And you thought this was just like the music version of Deep Dish, right?
Which was the turnoff to me because I didn't want. I was like, "Listen, you guys do your pizza. We'll let you call it pizza, even though it's not."
Chicago invented house, kind of resurrected dance music, and it's appropriate that Chicago is the city that did it because if you could say disco died anywhere, it died in Chicago because the disco demolition night at Comiskey Park was when all the disco records were blown up, and then the fans rioted. All these rock fans who hated disco. It was kind of the last nail in the coffin of disco in 1979.
So only fitting.
Only fitting. Dance music didn't go away. It just went back underground where it came from. And the Chicago DJs, guys like Frankie Knuckles, who was a DJ at a place called The Warehouse. And there's conflicting stories, but the sort of accepted idea is that house music is called house music because it came from The Warehouse.
Really?
And they would call them house parties.
Right.
And they would have music nights there.
Mm-hmm.
And the DJs took these disco records, these like early synth funk and electronic songs, and they would kind of remix them, put extra synths and hand claps and chop up and stutter the vocals and stuff. They brought back the disco hi-hats, and then that became dance music in the late 80s and early 90s, and it still is in a lot of ways. There was another DJ there who, after they were remixing songs, they started making their own originals. There's a producer named Steve Silk Hurley who did a lot of hits in the 90s, had a song that was a dance hit in America and actually went to #1 in Britain. Came out in 1986. This song is called Jack Your Body.
Jack your body, 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 jack your body.
Sounds kind of simple and rudimentary by today's house music standards, but that was where it began. It was these early records coming out of Chicago. And I love Frankie Knuckles, who was like one of the architects of that, as I said, called house music Disco's Revenge. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, appropriate it came out of Chicago.
Exactly. Disco's Revenge. You know, it was a big, and I didn't know this until I follow Dion Cole on social media. Yeah. And he actually sometimes will DJ and is the biggest disciple of Chicago House.
Really?
He's from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And so
he was probably that age going to those parties back then. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was probably at the Warehouse.
Oh, that's cool.
I can ask him about that.
That was the whole sound.
Yeah.
And it took over the rest of the country. And by the early 90s, house music was house music. It's just what you call dance music.
Which is really what I always, when EDM became a thing, I was like, all right, this is the grandchild of house music.
Yeah. Yeah. And the great grandchild of disco and
right.
So we talked about hip hop. Common, of course, is from Chicago.
Uh-huh.
Like R. Kelly, we got to mention probably the biggest, most respected, or at least formerly most respected,
but still
Kanye West. And it would make sense.
Music, yeah.
It would make sense to play some music from Kanye here, but I was like, the week after he dropped that Heil Hitler song, I just don't even feel like playing old Kanye anymore.
Yeah, it's not a good time.
But there's no denying.
There's no denying that
what he accomplished.
What he accomplished as not even so much as a solo. I mean, yes, as a solo artist, but the songs that he produced, the beats that he was doing before anyone knew
he was a one-man industry.
Yeah.
And then producers who worked with him, No Ideas from Chicago, who's produced Kanye, Jay-Z, Drake, all the biggest artists. Also, like you said, Common, we got Chance the Rapper, famously from Chicago. Lupe
Yeah.
Fiasco, Earl Sweatshirt. Remember Debrat from the 90s?
Yeah.
Funkified?
Oh yeah,
She's from Chicago. Twista, who
Twista, of course. Yeah.
at one time held the Guinness World Record as the fastest rapper alive. Guinness tracked this.
Who beat him? I thought he still had it.
He said he formerly held it. I can't find who has it now. Maybe they just don't do that record anymore. But officially, Twista could pronounce 598 syllables in 55 seconds. And we talked about in rock, all the artists like crossed over. In blues, they crossed over. In R&B, hip hop. I mean, Kanye lifted up other Chicago artists.
Oh,
Kanye produced Twista's biggest hit, "Slow Jams," with Jamie Foxx on it. Like all these artists worked together. We saw sadly there was a wave of young up and coming Chicago rappers who have all died. Juice WRLD was from Chicago.
Yeah.
King Von, Young Dolph, all died young. Shauna, who used to rap with Ludacris, remember her? She did "What's Your Fantasy."
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's from Chicago. Polo G, and again, Chicago's still innovating, introducing new sounds. About a decade ago, when Chicago drill, maybe 15 years ago, started coming up, you got Chief Keef and Lil Durk, who are like the godfathers of that genre. This is Lil Durk's biggest hit so far as a lead artist. This is with J. Cole. It's called "All My Life."
All my life, they be trying to keep me down. All this time.
Chicago's still producing
Oh yeah.
very relevant, very successful new artists and new sounds, and I don't see that ever changing.
I know Lil Durk's going through his thing right now.
There's some
He's going through
problems.
his thing. Whatever happened to Chief Keef? Because you're right. I remember like there was a time when he was blown up, was so big. We were covering him on the website
all the time.
constantly. But then he just kind of faded out. Is he
a
still
little bit. I think he's
producing,
still
or-
around. I honestly, I'm not sure.
Huh.
I think he still makes music. Maybe he
Yeah.
just needs a comeback.
Yeah.
I mean, but all of these artists, all these legendary Hall of Fame artists, let's talk about the most significant contribution to music Chicago ever gave the world. Right?
That is tongue is firmly in cheek when
Yeah.
it says that.
I mean, but kind of a
But
banger.
it was a banger.
Right before the Super Bowl in 1986, the Chicago Bears not only were in the Super Bowl that year, they went on to win the Super Bowl. They were in the middle of a dynasty, the Bears.
Yes.
And
that was
They made a song in the early days of rap. It was the Chicago Bears Shuffling Crew, and they did this song, the Super Bowl Shuffle.
We are the Bears, shuffling crew, shuffling on down, doing it for you. We're so bad, we know we're good, blowing your mind like we
I want to be clear. There are a lot of NFL Hall of Famers who are rapping on this. They will not be in a hip hop Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
It should be,
but,
clearly.
I mean, the song.
Sold 1 million copies.
I know.
Got
and it
number
sound-
41.
When we play it now, it sounds like it was a joke, but it was actually popular and got a lot of radio
Because that's
play.
kind of just what rap sounded like in 1985 when it was made. I mean, obviously they were not, they weren't Run DMC. They weren't the top tier rappers at the time. But still, it sounded like a contemporary rap song.
Somebody had to have written that for them, obesitting.
I don't know who wrote that song.
Is nobody taking credit?
Nobody's taking blame.
Everyone's like, that's cool. We don't need the royalties. It's
Putting this episode together, I learned something about that song I did not know. It was nominated for a Grammy.
Really?
It was nominated.
It got nominated.
In
What
87,
category?
It was
Best
nominated
rap
for
song?
Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals because they didn't have a rap category yet. That came the next year. It was nominated for Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group. You know what beat it?
Something better than that, obviously, which is doesn't seem like much of a bar.
Kiss by Prince and the Revolution. If Prince's Kiss had lost the Grammy to the Chicago Bears Shuffling Crew, I mean, the Grammys made a lot of mistakes over the years.
I mean, if that had happened, actually, we wouldn't be all that shocked.
No, actually.
We would be mortified and angry, outraged, but I wouldn't be shocked. Thank God they didn't.
Yeah. It's one of the only handful of Grammys Prince ever won. But
That song becoming popular was more about the personalities that were on that team, Walter Payton, Jim McMahon.
We see now, the Kelsey brothers do those Christmas albums that actually do pretty well.
And actually
the
do
Philadelphia
well.
Eagles have those albums. And if Travis Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes came out with a rap song, it would do well just because of who they are, especially if Taylor Swift wrote it.
I think that speaks more to the popularity of football in this country. And the Bears that year they won the Super Bowl. I always meant 46-10, beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
Pre-Tom Brady.
I was going to say, that sounds so weird now. The Patriots just got wiped out by the Bears.
Yeah, it used to happen.
I mean, the Bears.
The Bears.
Got to say it right.
The Bears.
So the Pope grew up with a lot of good music.
He really did. I mean, look, we've seen the videos of him at sporting events, at the World Series for the White Sox. Someone's got to have video of him at a concert, right?
More
got to be a
specifically-
Chicago concert.
Wait, how old's the Pope? He's 69?
Yes, 69.
So he was probably in his early 30s when the Super Bowl Shuffle came out. I guarantee you he knows every word to that song. And it's a 7-minute long song. It's a long, because all the players had to get their verse.
He could probably rap along to it.
I bet he could do a full benediction and then do the Super Bowl Shuffle. Maybe he could do it in Latin. I don't know.
I hear a special homily coming. I think it's coming.
Oh, geez, I hope not.
Chicago would implode
if the
if he
Pope
would
did the
ever.
Super Bowl Shuffle,
If he would ever. But yeah,
that would be one of the greatest things ever to happen in human history.
it would be pretty awesome if he just acknowledged Chicago music in general. The Super Bowl Shuffle would be hilarious.
If he
but
did,
all the other music
If he did the Super Bowl Shuffle as a house song with a rap break by Twista
and with
be the most Chicago
with a
thing.
Buddy Guy solo
Yeah.
in the middle. Yeah,
and the horn section from Earth, Wind and Fire. Oh man, I kind of want this to happen now. Honestly,
yeah. I think. Come on, Leo, you can do this. Come on. You know, I've heard that in addition to sporting events, he's a big fan of this podcast. I don't know.
Really?
Let's just put it out there.
We're gonna say it. You can't lie about the Pope. What are you?
Good point. Good point. I take it back. That is going to do it for us this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Get to the Hook.